Hey guys, I'm back with the last segment of my kitchen series for 2013 here. Back in my own home. The previous videos and blog posts were about organization in our family home in Utah. This is my own home here in the Chicagoland area, and I really wanted to pay attention to my pantry here. I organized it a couple of years ago, and I did actually post a video on it at the time. But, you know, every couple of years, every year or two, or however so often, I find that sometimes I have to tweak some of my organizational projects. Usually not a huge amount, unless really not working for me. But the organization I implemented did work for a while, but then I noticed that I could be using a couple extra tools that would really help keep things neater, so I didn't lose especially canned items and things like that, of that nature, in the back where things expire. And I end up buying things I don't need because I don't know I already have them. So that's what I mainly went ahead and did. I bought a couple of things, which I will share with you. And mainly I spend the bulk of my time tidying up. I think it's very important to clean out your pantry every so often. I probably honestly only do it about once a year, although I think you should probably do it more often than that. But a real thorough out cleaning, I only do about once a year. So I really needed to do that. But I'm going to take you in and show you what the pantry looked like before. It's now done. If you couldn't tell, it looks a lot neater. But let's go ahead and check out what the before tour was, and then I will share with you the things I purchased, and I'll give you a look at how I came to this. Alright, well here it is. It is a little bit unruly. I will admit that there definitely are some trouble spots, most notably the shelf with all of the canned and jarred items on it, as well as the floor. The floor, I don't want anything on the floor unless it's in one of those two bins, and things have just kind of gotten placed there because I don't know where else to put them. But you can see the elements of my original organization from last time is still in place. I really like this shelf with the cake and cookie bins. Works really well, having my mixers in there. I'm pretty happy with the baking bins. They just need to be kind of cleaned out. I try to do a big pantry clean out once a year at minimum for things that have expired. Really should probably do it more often, but to be honest, I probably don't. And I'm happy with those 3 bins up there where I have extra snacks and extra pasta and extra rice. I'm pretty happy with that. And then the very top shelf, I'm not going to change. It has our extra paper towels and trash bags and some really big empty jugs, but I will clean out the s'mores bin and kind of consolidate the bags and stuff and see if I can't donate some of those lunch bags that I don't really use a lot. But mainly, my main focus is this shelf right here, which I bought some special things for. And I think just some repurposing or replacing things, I should say, down there. I have a juicer actually in that bin on the right, which is piled high with plastic tubs at the moment, that I don't ever use. So I'm gonna find a new place for that, kind of out of the way, probably in my mudroom up in the closet or something, and then I can use that bin for other things. And another thing I want to do is I want to get, Don likes to keep the alcohol he drinks most frequently, so there's a couple of bottles down there in this closet instead of in our bar in the other room, and I'd like to get that up. He's pretty tall, so I can get that up pretty high, but things off the floor for the most part would be good. And also the other thing is I love my over the door, the back of the door closet organizer here. This is also Alpha. Oh, by the way, I installed this Alpha closet, you know, over 6 years ago when we moved into the house, and then I tweaked it a couple of years ago if you saw my last pantry update. But the problem with this is that it keeps shifting over, and it runs into the door handle, and it just ruins the opening mechanism of the door. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill that into place so it doesn't budge. You can drill it up at the very top. I'm pretty sure. I just need to get some wood screws, and that shouldn't be a problem. And I did buy a couple of things to help kind of with the bottom of this area, but mainly I know there's a lot of things on this part especially that are expired. So I'm going to do a big clean out first, and then I'm going to get to organizing. Because I have such great organizational aids such as bins already in my pantry, and I'm planning on repurposing them, I just bought a few things. Something I've been meaning to buy for a very long time are these shelf risers, and these are the mega version. They're the mega expand a shelf. I bought these at the Container Store. They're a little bit deeper than the other ones, so they can hold larger jars of things, and we do have like pasta and canned tomatoes and things like that, which are larger, and also they expand. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna need one or two. I bought two and I figured I could just return what I don't use. But that was the main thing I wanted to do, because the jars and the cans in the pantry is the toughest part of the current organization system. I think that's really where a lot of the issues are coming from. And then the only other things I bought are these 2 Snapware containers. And I bought these because I'm pretty sure they're going to fit in the back of the door organizer I have that's also alpha, just like the rest of the closet, where I can put things like my trail mix and open crackers and things that I have right now that I just have in little plastic bags, and they get kind of lost, and I figured it'd be nice to have them in one place. So there is my little Container Store haul, and now we'll get on to seeing how these things work in there. Okay guys, I took a couple of hours to really thoroughly clean it. I cleaned all the shelves, I cleaned out every bin, I cleaned everything, and it's really dark. Let me reposition the lights so you guys can see a little better. I hope that's a little better. So you can see right off the bat, I kept the bulk of the organization in the center the same. I'm gonna go through each shelf with you in just a moment, but I'm just gonna give you a general overview first. Starting at the very top shelf is the one I changed the very least. I just moved up our extra paper napkins up there, because honestly, I usually have decorative napkins out that I store in a drawer, the extras of. So those are just really just pure backup. And then, like I said, our extra trash bags and some really large jugs. And that's really all I did with that. Now on this second shelf here, and again, I apologize, it's super dark. I'll try to zoom in a little bit. So I took all of my lunch, I actually cut out a couple of lunch bags that I'm gonna donate, and I put my remaining lunch bags in all of those plastic containers that were kind of overflowing out of one of my floor bins before that are meant for lunchbox, you know, they're travel containers. I fit them all in that bin and I labeled it as such. The s'mores bin is the same. I just threw out the things that were stale, mostly stale marshmallows and some crackers. And then you can't see the label, the handle is covering it there. But that little bin actually repurposed from the middle shelf, which I didn't need it there anymore. And that has all of Don's extra ingredients that he uses for his homemade barbecue sauce that he makes once a year. He tends to buy those in bulk, so we always have a bunch left over, and they're usually good for a year, so they're all up there in one place. And then I didn't do anything with this area either. And yes, I know our pantry really needs to be repainted. Next time I do a big clean out, I'm definitely gonna repaint it. The next shelf down, I just relabeled the bins and consolidated a little bit. So now I have all the pasta and rice in one bin. We really don't keep a lot of rice on hand. We don't eat a lot of rice, I guess. And then we have extra dry goods, and that includes crackers and breadcrumbs and croutons, things like that. And then the extra snacks bin is the same. It has, you know, extra bags of chips and cookies and things like that. And then I did manage to sneak some of Don's vodka that he drinks more regularly up onto the upper shelf there. Makes me a lot happier than having it on the floor. This shelf with all of our canned goods is really where you see the most difference, and I purged a whole bunch out of that. There was not too much that was expired, but there was quite a few things that I knew we probably weren't going to consume before they expire early next year. And generally around this time, kids come around our block collecting food for a food drive. And so I just started a collection here of some canned goods and dry goods for that. But I went ahead and put in just one of those mega, what do they call those? Expanding shelf risers. And I have it slightly expanded, as you can see, and I basically just organized our canned goods in the same way I did when they were just all on one level, whereas I put kind of the things that are more, you know, lunch kind of meal friendly over here. So I've got soups and hearts of palm and canned salmon and anchovies and things like that, and then more things that we cook with over here, like beans and beef consomme and tomato stuff. We really don't keep a lot of canned things on hand at any given time. We really eat as fresh as possible, but of course sometimes you need some canned things. But I think overall, I think it makes the shelf a lot more accessible just with that, because things aren't getting jumbled and lost in the back, which is why I was having some problems with losing expiring items and not knowing that I had them on hand. Over onto the right side here, I've tucked in our dry dip mixes that we use for parties, the Jiffy corn muffin mix that we use to make our cornbread pudding, which is a family favorite we usually make during the summers. And then in the very back there, I have a little plastic jar. It's actually an old Snapware jar. And I've just put in extra chopsticks, little bundles of plastic forks and knives, and extra soy sauce, sort of just extra things. And having it tucked in the back there kind of makes sense to me because we don't really need to access those things a lot. But in the event that we run out of soy sauce, or need chopsticks, or I want to grab some forks and knives, plastic ones to go, they're all there. I left this side of this shelf for oils and sauce sorts of things that are new, unopened. I have a cabinet where I keep most of our open things, except for this really big canola oil has to live in here. That's obviously open, but I have backups of our olive oil and canola spray, which we go through quite a bit, or quite often, so I always have one on backup, and when I use a backup, I make sure to purchase a new one. And then I was lucky to have this little turntable on hand, actually. That was really fortunate. For all of these sorts of miscellaneous cooking items and sauce sorts of things, Worcestershire sauce, malt vinegar, hot sauce, horseradish, soy sauce, teriyaki, marinade, those sorts of things that when they're kind of, you know, one behind the other, they kind of get lost, but having them like this on this turntable makes a lot of sense to me, and I have all of the labels facing out. So if I'm looking for something, or Dawn's looking for something, you just swirl this around a couple times and find it. And I really, really like how open this shelf is. There's definitely a lot of room to grow. I could definitely put things on this part in the front of the shelf, and if I wanted to, layer some taller things behind the turntable. But for now, I think it's just really, really functional and a very good result. This middle shelf here still kind of has the same, I mean, every shelf I've stayed with the same types of things because that's what we're used to. It's the organization that works for us. And this is the food that we consume, you guys. This is not what I would expect everybody to have in their pantry. It's just the two of us. I know families have a lot more things in their pantry, and I'm sure I will have to revamp in the future when we have little ones. But this is, you know, just a disclaimer there, this is just what we've got. So I've got cereals as before on the sides, and then I just relabeled the bins, consolidated a little bit. So you can see I have granola, nuts, and dried fruit in here, and then chips and crackers is whatever we have open. Right now it's just one bag of Chip-Ins, kind of sad. Sweets, so this is like cookies and things like that. And then one whole bin for popcorn, so we've got loose kernels and bagged, you know, microwave popcorn, and then there's yeah, a popcorn cheddar cheese seasoning in there. And then on the right side here, I've put my backup sweeteners that I go through most often, including my favorite honey and Truvia. I didn't change the organization of this next shelf at all. This is my baking supply shelf. I really didn't do much. I cleaned up a little bit. The sugar bin still has all different kinds of sugars in it. Pretty self-explanatory. I did put my most frequently used baking items, since I most often make chocolate chip cookies. That includes all the sorts of things for that, but also my baking powder, baking soda, and vanilla are all in one place now, in one bin, because that's the one I go to the most. And then this one has sort of miscellaneous baking things that I don't use quite as often. And then flours on the end bin here. This one's a little bit harder to get out, but I don't access these flours very often. I have to take out this bin to get this bin out, so only bin in the whole cabinet that I have to do that. But I figured that was a good one to have with the extra flours. But I did put our pancake mix in there, which you can grab out. If you pull the bin all the way out, it lifts right out of there, and that's for easy access. Now it has its own place instead of floating around, randomly like it was before. Again, with this lower shelf, I really didn't touch the organization. I just cleaned up the bins. I will open them up and show you what they look like on the inside. But pretty self-explanatory. Cake supplies has things like piping bags, icing, squeezy tubes, cupcake liners, and you know, mostly things like that. And then the cookie one has cookie cutters and some things to make like brownie pops and things like that. And then I have my 2 mixers. I have a first aid kit always tucked into the side. I think it's very important to keep in your kitchen, as well as emergency cold packs in the back where you don't have to refrigerate them. That's in case, you know, of a powder outage or something. And lastly, on the floor here, I can see I did a major cleanup. I got most of the stuff off the floor with the exception of this big jug of apple cider vinegar. Dawn goes through a lot of that when brining poultry. So I didn't really know where else to put that at the moment, but maybe I could find a place off the floor for it. That doesn't bother me. The bulk of the stuff's off the floor, which is super exciting. I kept all of my main flours and sugars in this rollaway cabinet, rollaway bin, because it's just so convenient. I've liked having them like that for the past few years. It's really worked for me, as I always have huge bags of flours on backup and huge bags of sugar and just a lot, and this just keeps it all in one place and I know where to find it. And then, like I said, I did move my juicer, which I never ever use anymore. I've tucked it away actually into the basement in the event that I want to pull it out again. And there is a place that I could put it in the mudroom, which is adjacent to our kitchen, but I wanted to maximize space for now since I haven't thought of using it in a while. I have a Vitamix, which I use in place of my juicer now more frequently. But what I've been wanting to do for a while is bring in, I have this big collection of these sort of like, you know, Ziploc and Glad plastic containers that you can give away. Since we do host parties every now and then, I love having a lot of these on hand so I can send home leftovers to my family and they don't have to worry about getting back my special containers to me. And I had these in a bin on a shelf in our garage, and this is way more convenient to have in here. Plus, when we have a party, I can just wheel this whole bin out at the end of the night, and my family knows they just take what they want and use whatever containers or plastic baggies they want to use and have their own goodie bags to take home of leftovers. And then I also put some empty jars I like to keep on hand for this sort of the same purpose, or if you have extra sauce we make or something. But we actually have a whole bunch of glass containers in a drawer in our kitchen that we use for our own leftovers. I didn't change the wall organization of the cabinet. It's pretty narrow, so there's not a lot of room. I've got some aprons here on a hook. I had installed that last time around. Of course, every house needs to have a fire extinguisher. It's nice to have one in the kitchen. I feel like that's important. And then the ever important fly swatter, which is magnetic and it just sticks right onto my Alpha shelf. Last but not least, the behind the door Alpha organization here. I wasn't able to drill the unit itself into the door because of the way I have it set up. It just wasn't a possibility at this moment, but I did adjust it so it's in the center, and I think I just have to adjust it every year or two, which isn't a big deal. You just need like an Allen wrench and it's easy to move over. But I have up here on the top shelves things that we tend to look for pretty frequently, so like extra salts and agave and honey for cooking, and then coconut oil. Those things don't fit in the cabinet where we have you know, what we use on a daily basis. And then extra sort of peanut butter and things. I have quite a thing for mustards. I always have a lot of extra mustards on hand. I have quite a big collection in my refrigerator. And I didn't change this at all. This is still where I keep our boxed dry goods. So oatmeal, rice pilaf, we loved rice pilaf, and quinoa and things like that. And then usually I have mac and cheese boxes, but I need to restock on those obviously because I'm out, and that's usually pretty full. But that's where we keep those things. And then the only thing I really changed is I added these Snapware containers that I showed you earlier. And I don't have any, I have all the trail mix actually bagged up right now because I had pre-bagged a bunch of it for travel, but I will make a new batch and I will just put it directly in there with a scoop. And then when I want some, I'll just take this out of here and get my scoop and my little bag and be good to go. But then I also decided to put my open crackers in here, which I always keep in little plastic bags, and I thought that might be just a more accessible way. We'll see how that plays out, but I thought I would give that a try. And then just some yogurt covered raisins and dark chocolate covered pomegranate seeds that I would normally keep in my little sweets bin, but I find that if I don't see them, I don't eat them, and they tend to go stale. that is the entire pantry makeover. Really just a few minimal things. The main bulk of my time spent was cleaning, which really needed to be done, but mostly I'm very happy with the floor and being able to pull in those giveaway containers. And this shelf with the cans, that's gonna make a big difference, I think, in not, you know, wasting things. So there it is. As you can see, just putting in a few very simple things like these, the level risers. I don't know what to call these. They're like shelf risers, can risers. I'm not sure. I'll have a link to that exact product that I used, as well as the Snapware containers, in my blog post, and the link to that is below. But as you can see, just putting in a couple of things and really just tidying up made a huge difference. And I'm very, very pleased with this result. I know that I was happy that I was able to maintain a lot of the original organization of the closet, of the pantry, which I actually really like, and to me that signifies that it's a system that's working for me. I prefer the bins right now in my pantry, but like I said, those things can change as your needs change, and not everybody needs the same pantry setup. What I'm sharing with you is what works in my own spaces, and with the hopes that maybe it inspires you to look at your own spaces and really consider what works for you. I've said this before and I'll say it again, I don't think organization is a one-size-fits-all. I don't think what works for me will necessarily work for everybody, but at least for me, I find that looking at other people's way of organizing can inspire me to visit some of my own trouble spots. And even if I go in a completely different direction than whatever inspiration I gathered, you know, it planted the seed. So that's what I'm hoping for with these videos, that maybe you'll think of some things that you can do in your own home to help you. I really think this shelf is going to make a huge difference, just with being more accessible and being more able to see things. And I just think it'll be good. I just think it'll be good. Anyway, that is the end of my kitchen series. I do have some plans to work on my counter top organization, but I really need to dive into my holiday prep series. So if I do some tweaking with that, I will share with you guys in the new year. But I hope you enjoyed my kitchen series from this year and are looking forward to the holiday prep series. I'm very much looking forward to sharing with you. I have lots of fun things up my sleeves. And like I said, if you'd like to see more about the products I used and pictures of each bin and everything, you can head to my blog post, which is linked directly below, where I share all of that. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you soon with the holiday prep. Bye!